In the middle of 1944, one American submarine mounted a series of daring attacks on Japanese destroyers. Refusing to back down against their traditional nemesis, the sub fought a series of remarkable battles showing skill and resolve which lived up to its motto, "Hit 'em harder." In April 1944, the Gato-class submarine USS Harder was on patrol off the Caroline Islands, hunting Japanese shipping. Just like all of its previous time at sea, it was being skippered by Commander Samuel Dealey, an aggressive submarine captain who had seen good success up to this point, with 9 ships sunk so far in his and his boat's career. At that stage, Harder had exclusively sunk merchant ships, but as it prowled the waters around Wolseley on the night of April 12th, it received a signal from Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood, the commander of Pacific Fleet submarines, lifting an earlier ban on boats engaging Japanese destroyers. Up to this point, destroyers had been viewed as targets that were too difficult to hit and too dangerous to fight. But now, in the words of Lockwood writing after the war, the time had come to tear down the destroyer screens. Commander Dealey did not need to be told twice. Shortly after 6 PM the following day, Harder was spotted and closed down by the destroyer Ikazuchi. Rather than withdrawing the periscope and scrambling for the depths as Dealey might have done the previous day, Harder remained steady at periscope depth, readying its torpedoes. This video is sponsored by Call of War, a free online PvP strategy game. Call of War lets you take command over a nation during the Second World War and engage in combat with up to 100 other players in epic real-time games that can take weeks to complete. Players have to manage their resources, build up their military, trade and form alliances with other players, all in pursuit of achieving victory on several huge historical maps. Your units will move in real time, requiring good long-term planning to emerge on top. Call of War can be played with the same account on PC and mobile, so you can manage your war effort wherever you are. Sign up to Call of War using the link in the description and you'll get an exclusive gift of 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer available only for 30 days, so don't lose time. The destroyer sped on, closing the distance rapidly. Dealey held his nerve, waiting until the enemy ship was just 900 yards away before at 6:59 unleashing a salvo of 4 torpedoes right down its throat. Ikazuchi spotted the oncoming threat and tried to turn away, but it was too late. 2 of the torpedoes smashed into the destroyer, blowing huge holes in its side and dooming it to sink in a matter of minutes with no survivors. The crew of Harder were jubilant, and Commander Dealey now had a taste for hunting Japanese destroyers. His next opportunity came 7 weeks later, on June 6, 1944, after Harder had redeployed to the East Indies and was operating close to the Japanese anchorage at Tawi Tawi. At 7:30 PM, the boat's radar picked up a small Japanese convoy, made up of 2 destroyers and 3 empty oil tankers, which were heading south to one of Borneo's oil ports for refueling. Commander Dealey wheeled his boat around and set off in pursuit, hoping to get ahead of the convoy and attack it from the front. But he was soon hampered by a full moon, which rose shortly after sunset and allowed the destroyer Minetsuki to spot the submarine at 9:25. Minetsuki, like many Japanese destroyers, was keen to be aggressive and swung away from the other ships to charge down the American boat. In a similar setup to the first destroyer Harder had sunk, Dealey slowed his boat to a crawl and then turned it away, presenting the boat's stern torpedo tubes to the onrushing enemy ship. Then he waited. With every second that passed, Minetsuki got closer, increasing the chances that the torpedo would hit, but also the likelihood of suffering a severe depth charging if they missed. Finally, at 9:59, Dealey gave the order and 3 torpedoes shot out of the stern tubes, 2 of which smacked into the enemy ship and broke its back. As Minetsuki sunk, Harder surfaced just in time to see the other destroyer, Wakatsuki, on its way to belatedly offer its support. Again, Dealey resolved to take it on, beginning another game of chicken with an onrushing destroyer. At 10:42, Harder fired all 6 of its bow torpedo tubes as Wakatsuki bore down. This time, they missed. Dealey had to rapidly crash dive his boat to 300 feet as the destroyer now steamed straight over the top of them and dropped depth charges. Harder narrowly made its escape this time, but it was a sharp reminder of the high risks of taking on destroyers. But with high risk came high reward. Determined not to miss again, the following day Dealey allowed the destroyer Havanami to come within 650 yards in exactly the same way before firing torpedoes, which at this point-blank range smashed into the destroyer amidships and blew its magazine up, with an explosion so fearsome it almost rolled the submarine over. Harder was then swiftly forced down by the arriving Yurikaze, which subjected the boat to a depth charging that was so severe that several crew members thought they were about to be ripped apart. Not to be deterred, 3 days later Harder was at it again. Since one destroyer was now apparently too easy, Dealey took on 2 at once, letting them approach to within 1,000 yards before blowing the Tanakaze away with torpedoes. In the space of 4 days, Harder had now sunk 3 Japanese destroyers in close quarters, head-on combat. It was a stunning success, achieved with skill, iron resolve, and a helpful bit of luck too. Upon these submarines' return to port at Fremantle in July, Harder was the talk of the fleet. Rear Admiral Ralph Christie, commanding US boats based at Fremantle, was ecstatic, and Dealey's fellow submarine skippers soon dubbed him the Destroyer Killer. His success was a symbolic win for the idea that submarines could go after destroyers when previously that had been thought, if not impossible, then extremely ill-advised. In the nearly 2.5 years of war before the sinking of Ikazuchi, US submarines had sunk only 16 destroyers. In just the 8 months afterwards, to the end of 1944, 21 would go down this way. But despite the success, it was clear to many around Dealey that the boat's exploits had taken their toll. It had been the skipper's 5th war patrol, and normal practice was to transfer sub-commanders ashore at this point, as the strain of leading a submarine through repeated attacks and depth charging took its toll. On Harder's return, there was certainly concern about Dealey. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Frank Lynch, reported that during the patrol, Sam was showing unmistakable signs of strain. He was becoming quite casual about Japanese anti-submarine measures, and that at one time he had found Dealey in a state of mild shock, unable to make a decision. Rear Admiral Christie was concerned and considered ordering him off the boat as planned, with Lynch taking over. But Dealey was determined that he wanted to go out again, in order to give Lynch, who had also done 5 patrols, a rest before he took command. "I've got to make this patrol," he told Christie, and the Admiral eventually relented. And so on August 5th, 1944, Harder left Fremantle again, this time accompanied by the boats Hake and Haddo as a wolf pack under Dealey's command. They headed for the Philippines, arriving in time to join 3 other boats in an attack on a Japanese convoy off Palawan Bay on August 21st, which claimed 4 enemy merchant ships. Afterwards, the boats cruised the coast, with Harder sinking 2 Japanese frigates on the night of August 22nd, and Hake crippling the destroyer Asakaze the following day. By the early hours of August 24th, Hake and Harder had met up off Dassel Bay, where Hake believed that Asakaze may have been towed. In actual fact, it had sunk some hours before, but the Americans did not know that. The crew of the destroyer had escaped and were in the bay aboard a tanker, and they had called for help. At 5:32 AM, Hake picked up the sounds of screws and sonar approaching from the southeast. 2 ships slowly became visible in the early morning light, one large and one small. The larger ship was Patrol Boat 102, which was actually a captured Clemson-class destroyer formerly known as the USS Stuart. At 6:32, it turned away from the submarines and headed for the bay, leaving the smaller ship, the anti-submarine vessel CD-22, on its original course. Unhappy with how the situation was developing, Hake's skipper, Lieutenant Commander Frank Haler, broke off his approach and turned north. He then spotted Harder's periscope dead ahead, so turned about, just as the Japanese ship swung around towards the American boats. Expecting an imminent depth charging, Haler took his boat deep. It's not known exactly what Harder was doing at this point, but it's believed that Dealey had his boat pointed bow on at the onrushing enemy ship with his periscope visible, much as he had done before, daring the Japanese to charge at his boat. At some point, as the enemy closed in, Harder loosed 3 torpedoes, but all of them missed. A short distance away, as they descended, the crew of Hake heard a series of depth charge explosions at 7:28 am. When they surfaced some hours later, Haler tried to contact Harder but got no response. When this silence continued for days and weeks, Harder was eventually declared overdue, presumed lost. News of the loss of Harder was a terrible blow to the submarine force. It and Dealey had become famous for their exploits. Eugene Fluckey, the Medal of Honor winning captain of the USS Barb, considered Dealey his hero. In the months after the loss of Harder, recognition for the boat and its crew came in the shape of a Presidential Unit Citation and a posthumous Medal of Honor for Commander Dealey. What exactly had happened to Harder remained a mystery, as the boat went down with all hands and the wreck was never found, until 2024, when the wreck was discovered by the Loss 52 project. Harder lies over 1,000 meters down, intact other than a single large hole near the conning tower, most likely from a Japanese depth charge. The effect of fatigue or overconfidence in causing the sinking has long been speculated, but we'll never know for sure. Vice Admiral Lockwood put it down to the larger size of Japanese depth charges by this point in the war, making their attacks more effective. Perhaps Harder was just unlucky. Whatever played out in those few minutes on the morning of August 24th, 1944, it was the end for a fine crew and their boat, a small but significant part of the titanic struggle for control of the Pacific. Remember to sign up to play Call of War using the link in the description for the next 30 days to receive the exclusive gift of 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Click the link in the description, choose your country, and fight your way to victory.